Hi everybody, I'm Allie Meyer, and this is actually my second video attempt, so here we go. Okay, the book I read for class is called Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead by Sheryl Sandberg, and Sheryl is the COO of Facebook. Sheryl did a TED Talk in 2010 that was all about women and how women sometimes unintentionally hold themselves back in their careers. And that TED Talk just opened up a conversation about that and where we stand in the workplace today, especially with just the gender conversation with being women. I have some notes down here, so I'm just kind of reading off of those just so you know, so bear with me. So basically, Sheryl has a lot of experience in the workforce, worked for Google for some time, worked for the United States Treasury Department, all of that before she started working for Facebook, and is just very passionate about women in the workforce. And this book really is meant to inspire women to stop having conversations about what they can't do and to start talking about what they can do. And I could talk about it for a long time, but I'm just going to give you some major highlights. The first thing that Sheryl talks about that I would love to share with you is this concept of sitting at the table. So she describes a story, and she tells a lot of stories in her book. It's great because it's just funny and she's very wise. But she talks about a meeting that she held at Facebook that was both men and women. And everybody was kind of milling around before the meeting, eating a bite of food. And when it was time to start the meeting, the men sat down at the table and the women all sat away from the table. And during the meeting, she tried to get them to come sit at the table, and they just said, no, we're okay. But she didn't like that. And so she went to them after the meeting and just said, hey, what's going on? I want you to sit at the table with us. And that as she started to talk to them, she just started, in the book, she's describing the concept of just this battle within a lot of us as women, that in the workplace, we just tend to face a lot of insecurities, that too often women feel like frauds when our accomplishments are recognized. She kind of refers to this as the imposter syndrome, that a lot of us just live in this fear that we're not good enough, and that any minute someone might call our bluff. Let's see, that's noted, that's rooted in just underestimating ourselves and our abilities, and it's kind of scary. And Sheryl, I love this, describes a lot of her own insecurities and her own doubts and fears, which to me was so refreshing, that she is the COO of Facebook, this wildly successful person, but that she has her own insecurities and doubts too. And she just talks a lot about learning how to claim confidence as a woman in the workforce, and believing in our own abilities, and that ultimately she's really learned how to pull up her own chair and sit at the table and wants to encourage other women to do that professionally too. Another thing that she highlights in the book that I liked a lot is the concept of mentorship. She titles her chapter on mentorship, she calls it Are You My Mentor?, which is a spoof on the book Are You My Mother?, about the bird looking for his mom. She does a really good job explaining just the concept of a mentor and how a professional mentor can really be a great guide for someone, or a great guide for a woman in particular, and that mentorship is very reciprocal, and that if you find a mentor who has similar passions and has similar beliefs and just some real common ground, that it can be a really great relationship for both people involved. What she really warns against is finding a mentor just because they're like a big name or because they're a really important person. She, of course, is a really important person, but she says that she has a lot of people approach her and ask her about being their mentor, and that she just doesn't like that really finding a mentor is such a personal thing, and it's really important to find someone that you connect with who really understands you and what you're about. And she shares a lot of stories all throughout the book, just a lot of great stories, a lot of great statistics about women in the workplace. When it comes to mentorship specifically, she talks about some really tough mentor experiences that she had. And then at the end of the chapter just describes what it really felt like to find the right mentor and how great that was, and what an excellent work relationship she has with her mentor, and that it felt a lot like that bird at the end of the book where the bird finally found their mother and stopped talking to the train and to all the other big things that the bird encountered that just really weren't the right fit, and they weren't the bird's mom. And so when she finally found her mentor, she just drew that parallel, and I thought that was really cute. Just some common themes about the book. She talks a lot about seeking and speaking truth. And sometimes just as women, it's really hard to speak truth and to seek it out even when it's hard. Inviting honest feedback. I know I'll speak for me. I don't mind feedback, but I really prefer good feedback. And when it's critical feedback, sometimes that's hard, but that really, Cheryl points out that that's just the best way for us to grow, is when we really seek out feedback, even when it's hard or when it's critical. She talks a lot about becoming a wife and becoming a mom. She has 2 children, and that she felt so torn at first, like, well, do I need to stay home with them? Can I go back to work? Is that okay? Men go back to work almost immediately, it seems like, a lot of times. And so she really wanted to fight against kind of that stigma. And so that meant that she had to make a lot of changes. She was working like 12-hour days with Facebook and had to say, okay, I need to be in the office from specific times to specific times because I do have children and I have a husband and a home to maintain. And just talked a lot about what it looked like to draw those boundaries and how to do that. And especially in a world where a lot of times men don't have to draw boundaries like that. And so I just thought that was a really neat conversation to have, that she is really kind of pioneering that in a lot of ways for women if they're feeling torn. She certainly talks about the importance of being able to stay home with your kids if you can do that, and that is such a great and massively full-time job itself. But for her, she just knew that going back to work was so important to her, and so she wanted to do that, and how to navigate those conversations I just thought was really important. I'm married, but my husband and I don't have children yet, and I do also enjoy working. So I don't know what that'll look like for me, but I certainly think I felt a lot of encouragement just from reading that it can be done, that the conversation is really important to have, that just because we're women doesn't mean we have to stay home, that in an ideal world, we share everything. Men and women are equal, and half of us, maintain a home, or I guess women can maintain a home, men can maintain a home. Women can work, men can work. Like, we can all do it, and it can work really well. Speaking of doing it, she does talk about the myth of doing it all. That really is a myth, and we simply can't do everything. But she uses this quote that done is better than perfect. And I love that. And I think that's just something I'll probably really hang on to. So the book, really towards the end, she just talks about how can we really make a change? How can women be seen as equal and as important in the professional world? And just really getting that conversation started. I'm going to read a couple things to you. She talks on, here we go. Just talks about really bringing up the topic of gender at work in the professional environment. She says we need to be able to talk about gender without people thinking that we were crying for help or asking for special treatment or about to sue. As women, we want to be able to talk about that, but we're not seeking those things. We just want to be able to have the conversation, and it doesn't have to be hostile or really loud or picketed or anything like that, but we should be able to have that conversation because we're a new generation. And she just talks a lot about this new approach. And another thing I like that she said, to stop viewing other women as competition. There's a quote by Madeleine Albright, who's the former Secretary of State, that there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And I just thought that was really funny. I think we've got to be on the same team. We're all in this together. I don't know what any of your lives look like professionally. I actually work at an agency that's like 95% women. So initially reading this book, I was like, I don't know if I'll even really connect with it, but I really found so many pieces of it, just to even simply recognize the importance that I have as a woman, and that I am capable and I am strong and I am powerful, and I can do what men can do, and I can run a meeting and I'm important. I don't know, so many really great themes. So I'm going to be really conscious of our time. Just some final things. Cheryl talks about dreaming of a world where there's no female leaders, there's just leaders. We're all leaders. And so, let's see, one other thing I wanted to read to you, just this quick paragraph. The march toward true equality continues. It continues down the halls of governments, corporations, academia, hospitals, large firms, nonprofits, research labs, and every organization, large and small. We owe it to the generations that came before us and the generations that will come after to keep fighting. I believe women can lead more in the workplace. I believe men can contribute more in the home. And I believe that this will create a better world, one where half our institutions are run by women and half our homes are run by men. And I just thought that was neat. You can actually, I'll put this link in the discussion board, but she started a nonprofit called leanin.org, and it's basically a way to create lean-in circles in your own community. So I got on, and there actually are some lean-in circles in Colorado Springs where I live, and I thought it'd be neat to join one of those. But just some questions for discussion if you guys would like to. Would love to just know your thoughts on this. Would love to know what environments you work in or have worked in. And just with some of the information I shared with you, would just like to know kind of how you feel about that. How does the concept of sitting at the table make you feel? Do you think you can do that? Do you believe that that's important? Let's see, I would love to know, have you ever had an excellent mentor, personally or professionally, and what was that like for you? And then my other question that I had written was just, how can you lean in more as a woman in the workplace? What are more things that you think you could do to really take a stand for being a woman in the professional world? So that's that. I would love for you guys to discuss this as much as you want to. The book was fabulous. Just some really, really good things. And if you'd like to read it at some point when you're done with grad school and you're not reading a ton of other books, I would highly recommend it. Thank you.